Before there was time as we know it, there was the Nile. It breathed, it whispered, it remembered. And somewhere beneath its silver light, an ancient watcher still waits, a witness to kings and gods, to the rise and fall of empires, and to the quiet stories that never reached the history books. Tonight that watcher speaks. Listen carefully, traveler, for the desert remembers everything. The night has fallen over the Nile. The pyramids rest under a blanket of silver light, and the desert breathes, slowly, deeply, as it has for thousands of years. The wind moves through the palm groves with a whisper that sounds almost like a lullaby, rustling the fronds in that gentle, rhythmic way that makes the eyes grow heavy. Somewhere in the distance, the river laps against ancient stone, patient and eternal. I am awake. I have been awake for a very long time.
My name has been forgotten, worn away by sand and centuries. But once I walked these temple floors when they were new. Once I sat in the shadows of pharaohs and listened to the prayers of priests, whose voices have long since dissolved into silence. I am a cat, yes. But not just any cat. I am a witness, a keeper of stories, a small breathing library of all that has passed beneath this endless Egyptian sky. And tonight, traveler, I have been waiting for you. You have come from far away, across time, across distance, to rest here with me in this sacred place. Your body is tired. Your mind is crowded with the noise of your own world. But here, in this quiet corner between waking and dreaming, you can let all of that fall away. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Feel the cool stone beneath you. Imagine the night air, warm but not heavy, carrying the faint scent of lotus blossoms and sun-baked earth. Hear the palm leaves sighing. Hear the river, patient and slow, carving its ancient path through the desert, as it has done since before memory. Breathe with me, in and out. The stars above us are the same stars they saw. Those builders, those farmers, those priests who believed the sky was a great goddess, stretching her body across the world. They are watching us now. Those stars, they have always been watching. Before we begin our journey together, I ask a small favor of you. If this voice, this story, brings you peace, if it helps you drift into that soft, dark country of sleep, then leave a small mark of your presence, a like perhaps, a subscription, so we may meet again. Tell me, in the comments, where you are in the world, and what hour the night has reached. I am curious, you see. After all these centuries, I still wonder where the stories travel. But for now, let all of that go. Let it drift away like smoke from temple incense. We are about to step back, far back, to a time when stone was sacred, and every block placed was a prayer. We are going to stand beside the builders of the Great Pyramid of Giza. We are going to watch the Nile flood and the fields awaken. We are going to enter the temple of Karnak at dawn, when even the gods were being woken from their sleep. And through it all, you will rest. Your breathing will slow. Your thoughts will soften. And somewhere between the stories I tell, you will slip into sleep so gently, you will not even notice when it happens. Are you ready? Then let us begin. Listen. Can you hear it? The distant sound of a wooden flute, low and haunting, echoing across the desert. It is the sound of the ancient world calling you home. And in the background, the crackle of a fire, the kind that burns through the night, keeping watch while the workers sleep, while the priests pray, while the river dreams. Come, traveler, walk with me. Story 1. Building the Great Pyramid of Giza. The sun is not yet up, but the darkness is retreating. There is a moment just before dawn when the desert holds its breath. The temperature drops to its lowest point, cool enough that you can see your breath if you are awake to witness it. The sand is still cold beneath bare feet. The air smells clean, empty, waiting to be filled. On the plateau of Giza, hundreds of men are waking. They do not wake to alarm clocks or artificial light. They wake because their bodies know, because the cold has seeped through their thin linen blankets, because the distant sound of a drum has begun its slow, steady rhythm, because the cook fires are being lit and the smell of barley bread is beginning to drift through the camp. These men sleep in simple shelters, temporary structures of mud brick and woven reed mats, arranged in neat rows like a small city. Some of them are farmers, here during the flood season when their fields are underwater and there is no planting to be done. Some are skilled stonemasons, men whose fathers and grandfathers carved rock before them. Some are young, their muscles still hardening into the shape of this work. Some are old, their hands scarred and steady. They rise slowly, stiffly. They stretch, they cough. They scratch at insect bites and rub sleep from their eyes. They are not slaves. Let me be clear about this, traveler. That old story, that cruel myth, is not true. These are paid workers, fed workers, men with names and families and a fierce, almost religious pride in what they are building. Outside, the sky is turning from black to deep blue to pale gold. The first light touches the top of the unfinished pyramid, the monument they call Akhet Khufu, the horizon of Khufu, and for a moment, just a moment, it looks like it is glowing. The white limestone casing stones, already placed on the lower tiers, catch the sun and throw it back into the world, bright as polished silver. One man, emerging from his shelter, stops to look at it. His name is Neferhotep. He is 40 years old. His hands are calloused, his back is strong, and somewhere far to the south, in a village near the first cataract, his wife is raising his 3 children and waiting for him to return. He has been here for 6 months. He will be here for 6 more. But when he goes home, he will bring with him wages of grain and oil, and he will bring stories that his children will tell to their children. He looks at the pyramid and thinks, we are building eternity. It is a thought that makes him feel small and enormous at the same time. The smell of baking bread grows stronger. Somewhere, a man is laughing, a low rumbling sound that carries across the camp. Somewhere else, a child cries, because families live here too, in the margins, in the spaces between work and rest. Life does not stop for monuments. The drum beats again. It is time. The drum is not just a drum. It is a voice. It speaks in deep, resonant tones that travel across the plateau, bouncing off the half-built pyramid, rolling down the slopes into the workers' camp. It says, rise, gather, begin. The men respond slowly, but they respond. They pull on their simple kilts, white linen, tied at the waist, practical and light in the heat that will come. Some wear nothing else. Some wrap their heads in cloth to protect against the sun. A few of the older men, the foremen and master builders, wear sandals of woven papyrus, but most go barefoot. Feet toughen quickly here. They move toward the central gathering area, where the overseers are waiting. The hierarchy of the site is clear, written in posture and position. At the top are the architects, men who studied in temple schools, who understand geometry and astronomy, who can calculate angles and weights, and the precise alignment needed to mirror the stars. They wear fine linen and carry staffs of office. They do not shout. They do not need to. Below them are the scribes, thin-shouldered men with ink-stained fingers and sharp eyes. They record everything, every block quarried, every day worked, every ration distributed. In their careful hieratic script, they are writing a history that will last longer than memory. Then come the master masons, men whose authority comes not from education but from skill, from the ability to look at a block of stone and see where it is weak, where it will split, how it must be shaped. They carry tools, copper chisels, wooden mallets, plumb bobs of stone tied to strings, and then the workers themselves, organized into crews with names that make them grin with pride. The enduring crew of Khufu, friends of the throne, the northern gang, the southern lions. These names will be found thousands of years later, scratched in red ochre on the backs of stones, hidden forever inside the pyramid's core. Proof of presence, proof of pride. The overseer for the day, a broad man named Kemwaset, raises his voice. Today, he says, we raise the next tier, 30 blocks, each one placed with precision, each one an offering to the king who will live forever. There is no applause, no cheering, just nods, just the quiet understanding that this is sacred work, even when it is brutal work. Tools are distributed, copper chisels, expensive, valuable, resharpened every few days, because copper is soft and dulls quickly. Stone hammers, simple, heavy, effective. Wooden sledges for dragging, thick ropes of twisted papyrus fiber, rough against the palms. Wooden rollers, smooth from use. Measuring rods of wood, marked with cubits and palms and fingers. The ancient units of measure based on the human body. Because what else would you use but yourself? The sun is fully up now. It strikes the workers like a physical thing. Heat rising from the sand, heat pressing down from the sky. Within an hour, the world will be oven hot. But for now, in this brief, cool window, the work can begin in something close to comfort. They move toward the ramps. Before the first stone was ever cut, before the first worker ever set foot on this plateau, there was a plan. Not just a plan, a vision. The pyramid was not designed by architects alone. It was designed by priest engineers, men who stood at the intersection of the sacred and the practical, who believed that mathematics was a language spoken by the gods. They studied the stars with an intensity that bordered on worship, because they knew that the pyramid must be aligned with absolute precision to the cardinal directions: north, south, east, west. They used the stars to find true north. On clear nights they would build a circular wall of mud brick, smooth and level, and fill it with water to create a perfect mirror. Then they would watch the stars wheel across the reflected sky, marking the points where a specific star, perhaps Thuban, in the constellation of Draco, rose and set. The midpoint between those two marks was true north, accurate to a fraction of a degree. Can you imagine the patience required for that? The stillness? They would do this night after night, checking and rechecking, because if the pyramid was even slightly misaligned, it would be an insult to Maat, the cosmic order, the balance of the universe. It would be chaos creeping into perfection. And so, they measured, they calculated, they prayed. The base of the pyramid was laid out with cords and stakes, stretched tight and checked with water levels. Wooden channels filled with liquid to ensure perfect flatness. The base is not perfectly square, but it is so close that the error is less than the width of a hand across a foundation that spans more than 13 acres. Think about that. 13 acres of perfectly level stone. This was not carelessness. This was not close enough. This was precision as an act of devotion. The pharaoh, Khufu, son of Sneferu, ruler of Upper and Lower Egypt, lord of the two lands, came to inspect the site before construction began. He was carried in a litter of gilded wood, surrounded by fan-bearers and priests. He was a living god, and when he spoke it was with the voice of Horus himself. He stood at the center of the foundation and looked north, toward the point where the pyramid's peak would one day touch the sky. "Here," he said, "I will join the stars. Here I will be eternal." And every man present believed him, because what was a lifetime of work compared to eternity? What was sweat and stone compared to the promise that your name would be spoken in the halls of the gods? The workers did not see themselves as slaves to a tyrant. They saw themselves as participants in something vast and holy. Each stone they placed was a prayer. Each level they completed was a step closer to the divine. And if that sounds strange to you, traveler, If it sounds like madness or delusion, then consider this. What have you built that will last 4,000 years? What have you made that people will still stand before, speechless, millennia after your name is forgotten? They knew what they were building. They knew why. The limestone for the pyramid's core came from the plateau itself. Relatively soft, golden stone that could be quarried nearby. But the casing stones, the ones that would cover the pyramid in brilliant white, had to be perfect, flawless, smooth as glass. They came from Tura. Tura is across the Nile, a journey of several miles by boat. The quarries there cut deep into the cliffs, and the stone that emerges is fine-grained, dense, luminous. In sunlight, it almost glows. The quarrymen are specialists. They arrive before dawn because the work is hard and the heat is merciless. They carry water in clay jars, wrapped in damp cloth to keep it cool. They carry food, flatbread, onions, dried fish. They carry their tools, copper chisels, dolerite hammers, harder than copper, essential for breaking stone, wooden wedges, and most importantly, water. Water is the secret. To split a block cleanly, the quarrymen carve a line of narrow slots along the stone's natural grain. Into each slot, they hammer a wooden wedge, tight, but not splitting, tight. Then they pour water over the wood, and they wait. The wood swells, slowly, silently, with immense, irresistible pressure. The stone cracks along the line with a sound like thunder contained, and a perfect block is born. It is brutal work, but there is a rhythm to it, a ritual. The men work in teams, and they sing, not songs with words, always, but work chants, sounds that keep time, that synchronize effort, heave, strike, rest, breathe, over and over, until the sound becomes a kind of meditation. One of the quarrymen is named Seneb. He is missing the little finger on his left hand. An accident years ago, when a chisel slipped. He does not talk about it. He works twice as hard as anyone else to prove it does not matter. When a block is freed, it must be dressed, shaped roughly to size, smoothed on the faces that will show. This is done on site, to reduce the weight that must be transported. The air fills with stone dust that coats the lungs and turns sweat into pale mud on the skin. They drink often. They rest in the shade of the cliffs during the hottest part of the day. They know their limits, because a man who collapses from heat is a man who cannot work tomorrow, and the schedule is tight. The pyramid must be finished within Khufu's lifetime, or it is a tomb that will never be consecrated properly. It is a race against mortality. At the end of the day, the finished blocks are loaded onto wooden sledges and dragged to the riverbank, where boats are waiting. Broad, flat barges of acacia wood, built to carry weight, low in the water. The blocks are floated across the Nile during the inundation season when the river is high and calm. The boats move slowly, rowed by men who sing river songs, songs about crocodiles and fish, about the god Hapi, who brings the flood, about wives waiting in distant villages. On the western bank, the blocks are unloaded and dragged up the ramps toward the plateau. It is a journey that can take days, depending on the size of the stone. And every single one of those blocks, each one weighing as much as 2 or 3 or 4 grown men, will end up inside the pyramid, locked in place forever. Imagine a block of limestone, not a pebble, not a brick, a block the size of a small car, weighing 2.5 tons, 5,000 pounds of solid stone, pale gold in the sunlight, rough-hewn but destined for eternity. Now imagine moving it, without wheels, without engines, without cranes. This is the work. The block rests on a wooden sledge, thick planks of acacia, lashed together with rope, worn smooth from use. Attached to the front of the sledge are thick ropes of twisted papyrus fiber, rough as tree bark, strong enough to hold the weight of the stone and the pull of 20 men. 20 men. They line up in rows, gripping the ropes, bare feet planted in the sand. Their skin glistens with sweat and oil, rubbed on to reduce chafing, to protect against the sun. Their muscles are lean and hard, sculpted by this work, by the endless repetition of pulling, dragging, lifting. An overseer stands to the side, clapping a rhythm. Pull, rest, pull, rest. They heave. The sledge moves. Not smoothly. Nothing about this is smooth. It lurches forward, grinding against the ground, and the men stumble, catch themselves. Pull again, inch by inch, foot by foot. But here is the trick. The ground is not dry. Ahead of the sledge, 2 workers move with clay jars, pouring water onto the sand. Not too much, just enough to dampen it, to change its texture from loose and shifting to firm and slick. Behind them, another worker spreads a thin layer of wet mud, almost like grease. This changes everything. The sledge begins to glide, still heavy, still requiring enormous effort, but gliding now with a fraction of the resistance. The wet sand compacts under the weight, becomes almost solid, and the sledge slides across it with a hissing, scraping sound that becomes the soundtrack of the plateau. The men pull in unison. They breathe together. They grunt together. They stop together when the overseer raises his hand, and they collapse into the shade of the sledge itself, gasping, drinking from water jars passed hand to hand. The water is warm and tastes faintly of the clay it was stored in. But it is life. They rest. Not for long. Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe 15. But enough. Enough to let the heart slow. The breath steady. Enough to look up and see how far they've come. How far they have yet to go. The pyramid rises ahead of them, still unfinished. A stepped mountain of stone climbing toward the sky. They have been pulling this block for 2 hours. They have moved it perhaps 200 feet. They have another half-mile to go. And then the ramps. The ramps. Ah, traveler. The ramps are a marvel in themselves. They spiral around the pyramid, or perhaps they run straight up the sides. No one knows for certain, because they were dismantled when the work was done, their mud, brick, and rubble reclaimed. But they were vast, steep, wide enough for teams to pass each other going up and down. The sledge reaches the base of a ramp. The angle changes. The work becomes harder, exponentially harder. Gravity is no longer neutral. It is an enemy. Every foot gained upward is a foot that wants to slide back down. More men are added to the ropes. 30 now. 40. They pull. The sledge climbs. Behind it, workers spread more water, more mud, creating a slick path. Wooden rollers are placed under the sledge to ease the friction, though they must be moved constantly. Repositioned ahead of the stone. A never-ending cycle of lift, place, roll, retrieve. It takes them 6 hours to reach the current tier. 6 hours of pulling, resting, pulling, resting. By the time they reach the top, the sun is directly overhead, a white furnace in a pale sky. The men are beyond exhausted. They drink. They eat. A quick meal of bread and onions, sharp and sustaining. They sit in the narrow shadows cast by the stones, already in place. And then they do it again. Because there are 30 blocks to move today. 30 blocks. And tomorrow there will be 30 more. And the day after that, 30 more. For years and years until the pyramid is complete. This is the work. This is the prayer. You cannot build eternity on an empty stomach. The workers eat well, surprisingly well considering the era, considering the desert. This is not cruelty. This is not starvation rations. This is fuel, carefully calculated, distributed with the same precision that goes into placing the stones. 3 times a day the workers are fed. Breakfast is simple. Flatbread, still warm from the clay ovens, torn into pieces and dipped in a thin onion broth. The bread is made from emmer wheat, ground on stone saddles by women whose arms are as strong as any man's, from the endless rhythm of pushing the grinding stone back and forth. The bread is dense, chewy, filling. It tastes faintly of smoke and grain, and the char from the oven walls. With it, they drink beer. Not the beer you might know, traveler. This is thick, nutritious, barely alcoholic, more like liquid bread than what you would call beer. It is made from barley, fermented in large clay vats, strained through reed baskets to remove the chunks of grain. It is rich in calories and vitamins, and it is safer to drink than water, which can carry sickness from the river. The workers drink from shared bowls, passing them hand to hand. There is a camaraderie in this, a ritual of sharing that binds them together. Midday, during the break from the worst heat, they eat again. More bread, this time with garlic and onions. Raw, sharp, pungent. Garlic is believed to give strength, and whether it does or not, the workers believe it. And belief is its own kind of power. Sometimes there is dried fish, salty and tough, pulled apart with the fingers. Sometimes lentils, boiled into a thick stew, with leeks and coriander. They eat sitting in groups, their crews clustered together, talking in low voices. They talk about the work, yes, but also about home, about harvests and children, and debts owed, and festivals coming. They talk about small things, because small things are what make life bearable when the work is vast. In the evening, after the sun has set and the work has stopped, there is the main meal. This is when the oxen are slaughtered. Not every day, but often enough. The meat is roasted over open fires, smoky and rich, distributed according to rank. The workers get their share. Tough cuts from the shoulders and legs, but meat nonetheless. They chew it slowly, savoring it, because meat is a luxury even here. With the meat comes more bread, more beer, and sometimes, on good days, dates or figs, sticky sweet, brought from the oases or the delta. They eat communally, sitting on the ground, sharing bowls and stories. The fire crackles. The stars emerge one by one, filling the sky with light. It is in these moments that the work feels worth it. Not because of the pyramid, though that matters, but because of this. The warmth of the fire, the taste of food, the sound of laughter, the presence of friends. The rations are recorded by the scribes, every loaf and jar accounted for. The workers are paid in food and beer, in oil and cloth, and when their time is done they will take home sacks of grain, enough to feed their families, enough to trade for other goods. This is not slavery. This is work, hard work, backbreaking, exhausting work. But it is also paid work, respected work. Work that comes with dignity and a strange, fierce pride. One of the workers, a young man named Kenty, once said to his son, "I am building the house of a god. When I am gone, my name will be inside it, hidden but eternal." What greater thing could a man do? And his son, years later, would say the same thing to his own son, because some things are worth the cost. Why build a pyramid? Why spend decades of labor, vast quantities of resources, the coordinated effort of thousands of people to create a mountain of stone? The answer is not simple, traveler. It is layered, like the stones themselves. The pyramid is a tomb, yes, but it is not just a tomb. It is a machine for resurrection. The ancient Egyptians believed that death was not an ending but a transformation. The body died, yes, but the Ka, the life force, the essence, could live on. The Ba, the personality, could travel between the worlds. And if the proper rituals were performed, if the proper offerings were made, the dead could achieve Ak, a state of glorified eternal existence among the gods. But this required certain things. The body had to be preserved, thus mummification. The name had to be remembered, thus the inscriptions. And the soul needed a place to return to, a beacon, a home that could be seen from the heavens. The pyramid was that beacon. Its white limestone casing, polished to perfection, reflected the sun so brightly it could be seen for miles. It was a light in the darkness, a marker in the infinite desert, a place where the boundaries between earth and sky, life and death, mortal and divine, grew thin. Inside, in the chambers at the pyramid's heart, the pharaoh's body would rest in a sarcophagus of red granite, hard as iron, carved and polished until it rang like a bell when struck. The walls would be inscribed with the pyramid texts, the oldest religious writings in the world, spells and prayers designed to guide the king through the dangers of the underworld. O king, you are this great star, the companion of Orion, who traverses the sky with Orion, who navigates the Duat with Osiris. The workers knew these things. They might not have been able to read the hieroglyphs themselves. Literacy was rare, reserved for the priestly and scribal classes. But they knew the knowledge was in the air, in the prayers chanted at dawn, in the way the architects aligned the passages with the stars. Every stone they placed was a step on the king's journey to immortality. And here is the beautiful, terrible truth. They believed it would work. They believed that if they built this correctly, if they aligned it properly, if they prayed hard enough and worked long enough, the king would rise. He would join the gods. He would sail across the sky in the boat of Ra. He would be eternal. And in being eternal, he would protect them, the people, the land, the cosmic order. So when Neferhotep, the worker we met at dawn, places a block and steps back to check its alignment, he is not just doing a job. He is performing a sacred act. He is ensuring that the universe continues to function, to build something that would outlive your name. That was their kind of immortality. Not personal, not individual, but collective. To be part of something so vast, so enduring, that it would still be standing when your great-great-great-grandchildren were dust. That was the dream. And they built it, stone by stone, prayer by prayer. Deep inside the pyramid, in places no visitor will ever see, there are names. Not the name of the king, that is everywhere, carved in formal hieroglyphs, rendered in gold and paint. These are different names. Rougher, written in red ochre or charcoal, scratched hastily with a piece of limestone, scrawled in the informal hieratic script that was the handwriting of everyday Egypt, the followers of the powerful white crown of Khufu, the enduring gang, the craftsman crew. These are the work gangs, the teams who hauled the stones, who placed them, who argued and sweated and bled to make this thing real. And in the darkness, hidden forever inside the pyramid's core, they left their mark. It was not vandalism. It was pride. It was the ancient equivalent of carving your initials into wet concrete, of signing your name on a beam before it is sealed behind drywall. I was here. I did this. Remember me. And we do, traveler. We do. Thousands of years later, when archaeologists crawl through the hidden spaces with electric lights and cameras, they find these marks, and they photograph them, study them, preserve them. They find the names of foremen and crew leaders. They find tallies, marks to count the number of blocks moved on a particular day. They find crude drawings, a boat, a man with a staff, a symbol whose meaning is lost. They find humanity, because that is what these marks are, proof that the people who built this were not faceless masses, not nameless drones. They were individuals. They had identities. They had pride in their work, and a need to be remembered that is so profoundly human, it aches to think about. One mark found in a cramped passage near the king's chamber reads simply, "Shededi was here." Who was Shededi? We will never know. Was he young or old? Did he have a family? What did he dream about when the work was done? But we know he was here. We know he mattered. On the surface, visible to the world, hieroglyphs tell a different story. They are formal, elegant, carved with precision by skilled artisans. They speak of the king's greatness, his divine birth, his victories over chaos. They list his titles. Horus Medjed, the two ladies Medjed, the golden Horus, the one who is established, king of Upper and Lower Egypt, Khnum Khufu, given life forever. These hieroglyphs are not just writing, they are magic. To write something is to make it true, to speak it into existence. The name of the king written in stone ensures his memory. The spells inscribed in the burial chamber ensure his resurrection. Words have power here, and so the scribes carve carefully, checking and rechecking, because a mistake is not just embarrassing, it is dangerous. It could trap the king's soul, could doom him to wander the underworld forever, hungry and lost. No pressure. The workers who cannot read still understand this. They see the hieroglyphs, and they know. This is important. This is sacred. This is the language of the gods. And in their own way, with their crude graffiti and work gang names, they are participating in that language. They are saying, "We were here. We mattered. We built this." And they did. The work is dangerous. There is no safety equipment, no harnesses, no hard hats, no OSHA regulations. There are only men and stone and gravity and heat. People get hurt. A block slips from its ropes and crushes a man's foot. The sound of the bones breaking is sharp and wet, and the man's scream echoes across the plateau. His crewmates carry him to the medical tent, a simple structure of reed matting and linen. But inside there is knowledge. The physician is a man named Carr. He is thin, bald, intense. His hands are steady. He has been trained in a temple school, where he learned anatomy from the bodies of the dead, where he memorized incantations and remedies passed down through generations. He examines the foot. The skin is split, the bones shattered. In another time, another place, this would mean amputation, infection, death. But Carr is skilled. He sets the bones, realigning them as best he can, feeling for the correct position with his fingertips. He splints the foot with wooden slats and binds them with linen soaked in tree resin. Sticky, antiseptic, rigid when it dries. He gives the man a potion, opium dissolved in wine, bitter and numbing. The man will live. He may even walk again, though he will limp. This is not unusual. The medical knowledge of ancient Egypt is surprisingly advanced. They understand infection, not the germ theory, but the visible signs of rot and fever. They use honey as an antiseptic. It works even if they don't know why. They use moldy bread on wounds. We would later call the active ingredient penicillin. They set broken bones, stitch cuts, even perform surgery. But not all injuries can be healed. Sometimes a man falls from the ramps. Sometimes the heat takes them. A sudden collapse, convulsions, death within hours. Sometimes a rope frays and snaps, and the block it was holding rolls backward, and there is no time to move, and the man beneath is simply gone. When a worker dies, the work stops. Not for long. Maybe an hour, maybe two. But it stops. The body is carried away with reverence. Prayers are murmured. Offerings are made to ensure the dead man's journey to the afterlife is safe. They do not see death as the end. They see it as a door. The man's body will be returned to his family, if possible. If not, he will be buried in the workers' cemetery, a humble necropolis on the edge of the plateau. His grave will be marked with a simple stone, his name inscribed if anyone can write it. He worked on the pyramid. That matters. The living carry on. They drink water. They tie a red cord around their wrists to ward off further accidents. Sympathetic magic. A visible prayer. They check their ropes, their tools. They are more careful for a day or two. And then the work grinds the caution away. And they go back to moving as fast as they can, because the schedule is tight, and the pyramid must be finished. This is the cost. Blood and sweat, and sometimes lives. And yet, they continue, because some things are worth the cost. At the heart of the pyramid there is a room. It is not large, only about 34 feet long, 17 feet wide, 19 feet high. By the standards of the pyramid itself, it is tiny, but it is the reason for everything. This is the king's chamber. The walls are built of red granite, brought from Aswan, hundreds of miles to the south. Granite is hard, harder than limestone, harder than copper, nearly impossible to carve with the tools of the time. Yet here it is, cut into perfect blocks, fitted so precisely that you cannot slip a blade between them. The ceiling is made of 9 enormous granite beams, each weighing 50 tons. Above them, 5 more chambers, empty spaces designed to distribute the weight of the pyramid above, to prevent the ceiling from collapsing under millions of tons of stone. It is engineering of such sophistication that it will not be fully understood for thousands of years. In the center of the room there is a sarcophagus. It is carved from a single block of red granite, hollowed out with copper saws and sand abrasive. The work required to create it, to cut, to grind, to polish, would have taken months. Years. The interior is smooth as glass. The exterior is plain, undecorated, speaking its importance through simplicity alone. This is where the king will rest. His body wrapped in linen, anointed with oils, preserved for eternity. His organs removed and placed in canopic jars, will be stored in a separate chamber. His heart will remain in his chest, because the heart is the seat of consciousness, of memory, of everything that makes a person who they are. The workers who build this chamber move with extreme care. Every block must be perfect. Every angle must be precise. This is the Holy of Holies, the inner sanctum, the room where a god will sleep until the world ends. The acoustics are strange here. Sound behaves oddly in this space. Echoes lingering too long, voices seeming to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Some of the workers whisper that the room is already inhabited, that the king's car is here, watching, waiting. They may be right. The passage leading to this chamber is narrow. The grand gallery, a space so architecturally daring that nothing like it will be built again for centuries. It rises at a steep angle, 28 feet high, but only 7 feet wide, with a corbelled ceiling that seems to defy gravity. The walls are polished limestone, and when you stand at the bottom and look up, the passage seems to ascend into darkness, into infinity. Walking up the grand gallery feels like climbing into the sky. The workers who carry the granite beams for the ceiling do so with ropes and sledges and sheer, desperate strength. Each beam must be maneuvered through the passageways, inch by inch, tilted and lifted, and positioned with such precision that even a finger's width of error could mean disaster. It takes weeks to place a single beam. When the 9th beam is finally in position, when the ceiling is complete, the overseer, a man named Hemiunu, the king's cousin, the architect of architects, stands in the chamber and simply breathes. He has done it. The room is finished. The king's eternal resting place is ready. Torches are lit. The granite glows in the firelight, deep red, like dried blood, like the desert at sunset. The sarcophagus sits empty, waiting. The air feels thick, heavy with expectation. Hemiunu whispers a prayer. May the king live forever. May his name endure. May he rise with Ra and sail across the sky. Outside, the pyramid continues to grow. But here, in this small room, at its heart, the work is done. The stillness is profound. The pyramid, as you see it now in your mind's eye, is golden brown, the color of the limestone core, rough and stepped like a massive staircase. But that is not how it was meant to be seen. The final stage of construction is the casing, covering the entire pyramid in fine white Tura limestone, polished to a mirror finish. This is the work of artists. The casing stones arrive from Tura in near-perfect condition, already dressed to size, their surfaces smooth but not yet polished. They are placed from the top down, an unusual approach but necessary. The workers start at the peak and work their way down, fitting each stone with such precision that the joints are nearly invisible. The key is the angle. The pyramid's sides must slope at exactly 51 degrees, 52 minutes. The sacred angle, the perfect angle, determined by the architects through calculations that blend mathematics and theology. Each casing stone is cut with a slight inward slope on its bottom face so that it locks into place, held by its own weight and the pressure of the stones above and around it. No mortar is needed. Just stone on stone, perfect and eternal. Once a stone is placed, the polishing begins. The workers use sand, not as an abrasive but as a medium, mixed with water to create a paste. They rub this paste over the limestone with flat stones, working in circular motions, hour after hour, until the surface begins to shine. Then they switch to finer sand, then to powdered gypsum, then to nothing but water and cloth, buffing the stone until it reflects light like a mirror. It is tedious work, mindless, meditative. The workers sing as they polish, old songs about the river, about love, about the gods. The rhythm of the rubbing becomes the rhythm of the song, and the song becomes the rhythm of the day. Slowly, so slowly, the pyramid transforms. The rough golden surface disappears beneath brilliant white. The pyramid begins to glow, to shine, to throw light back at the sun with such intensity that it hurts to look at directly. From a distance, it looks like a mountain of light, like a piece of the sun fallen to earth. At dawn, when the first rays strike the eastern face, the pyramid blazes. At sunset, when the light is golden and low, it glows like a living thing. At midday, under the full strength of the desert sun, it is almost painful to behold, a beacon visible for miles in every direction. The workers, when they rest, sometimes just sit and stare at what they have made. It is impossible not to be awed. One of the polishers, an old man named Ptahhotep, says to his grandson, "We are making a light for the king to follow home. When his soul flies across the sky, he will see this and know where his body rests." The grandson, young and practical, asks, "But grandfather, won't he remember where he is buried?" Ptahhotep smiles. "The underworld is dark and full of demons, child. Even a god can lose his way. This will guide him." And perhaps it does. Perhaps even now, the light of the pyramid shines in some other realm, some other world, guiding souls home. Or perhaps it is just beautiful. Sometimes that is enough. The pyramidion, the capstone, the final piece, is not made of limestone. It is special, sacred. Some say it is covered in gold leaf, reflecting the sun so brightly it can be seen from Memphis, the capital, 10 miles away. Some say it is electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver, pale and luminous. Some say it is inscribed with the king's names and titles, with prayers, with spells. No one knows for certain. The pyramidion was stolen long ago, lost to time and tomb robbers, and what remains is only legend. But on the day it is placed, the entire plateau gathers to watch. This is not just the completion of a building. This is the completion of a promise made 20 years ago, when the first stone was laid, when the king was young and Egypt was strong. The pyramidion is brought up the ramps on a special sledge, decorated with flowers and ribbons, accompanied by priests chanting, by musicians playing sistrums and harps, by incense burners filling the air with smoke that smells of heaven. The king himself is present, old now, his beard white, his body bent, but his eyes are clear, and when he sees the pyramidion, he weeps. This is his eternity. This is his victory over death. The final block is lifted, slowly, carefully, using ropes and a wooden frame constructed at the pyramid's peak. The workers pull. The priests pray. The crowd holds its breath. And then, with a sound like a sigh, the pyramidion settles into place. The pyramid is complete. For a moment there is silence. Absolute, profound silence. And then a roar, a cheer that rises from thousands of throats, that echoes across the plateau, that seems to shake the very stones. The workers raise their arms to the sky. The king raises his crook and flail, the symbols of his authority, and his voice, old but still strong, rings out. I have built my house of eternity. I have prepared my place among the stars. Let all who see this know. Khufu will live forever. And they believe him. In that moment they believe. The celebration lasts for days. Oxen are slaughtered by the dozen. Beer flows like water. The workers are given extra rations, extra pay, gifts of cloth and oil and grain. There is dancing. There is music. There is laughter that carries into the night. But eventually the celebration ends. The workers pack their belongings, say their goodbyes, and return to their villages. Some will come back for the next project. There is always another pyramid, another temple, another monument. Some will never build again, their bodies too worn, their strength too spent. But they will all carry the memory of this. They built the impossible. They made eternity real. Neferhotep, the worker we met at dawn all those chapters ago, stands at the edge of the plateau and looks back one last time. The pyramid rises behind him, white and perfect, catching the afternoon light. He thinks, my hands touch those stones. My sweat is in that mortar. My name is written inside, hidden but there. He thinks, I will die, and my children will die, and their children will die. But this will remain. He thinks, I built eternity, and then he turns and walks toward home. The sun is setting over Giza now. The sky is bruised purple and orange, the colors deepening as the light fades. The pyramid casts a long shadow across the desert, a triangular darkness that points east toward the Nile, toward the life-giving water. The plateau is empty now. The workers are gone. The tools are packed away. The ramps have been dismantled, their mud, brick, and rubble scattered by wind and time. Only the pyramid remains. It stands silent, immense, perfect. The white limestone casing glows faintly in the dying light, holding the warmth of the sun even as darkness approaches. Somewhere a wind rises. It moves across the sand, soft and steady, carrying with it the smell of the desert, old stone, ancient dust, the faint memory of rain that fell 10,000 years ago. I sit here small and furred, watching. I have seen this moment before, many times. In many forms, I have seen the pyramid rise from nothing. I have seen it finished, gleaming, worshipped. I have seen it stripped of its casing stones, plundered by later generations who needed the white limestone for their own buildings. I have seen it photographed, measured, studied, marveled at by people from lands that did not exist when it was built. And through it all, the pyramid remains. Not unchanged. Nothing is unchanged, but enduring, present, real. The workers who built it are dust now, their names forgotten, except for a few crude scratches hidden in the dark. The king who commanded it is dust. The priests who prayed, the scribes who recorded, the overseers who shouted, all dust, but the pyramid stands. And so, under the stars they once measured, under the same moon that lit their nights, the pyramid dreams, of hands rough with work, of songs sung in rhythm with labor, of men who believed they could touch eternity, and did. The last light fades. The stars emerge one by one, filling the sky with ancient patterns. Orion rises, the constellation they associated with Osiris, god of the dead, god of resurrection. The king's soul was meant to join those stars, to sail among them forever. Perhaps it did. Perhaps it does still. The wind sighs, the sand whispers, the pyramid breathes. Not with life, but with memory, with the weight of millennia, with the presence of all that has passed, and all that remains. And somewhere in the darkness, a cat watches, and remembers and waits for the next story to be told. The sound of the wind grows softer now, merging with the distant murmur of water. The Nile, eternal and patient. There is the gentle sound of a harp, barely audible, like something heard in a dream. Rest now, traveler. The stones rest. The river rests. And so should you. Story 2. When the Nile flooded and the fields awoke. It is the 4th month of summer, what they called Shemu, the season of harvest. But the harvest is long past. The grain has been cut, threshed, stored in the king's granaries and the village silos. The fields are empty. The earth is cracked. If you walk across the land now, you will see fissures in the soil, deep cracks that run for yards, wide enough to fit your hand inside. The earth has split open like old leather, desperate for water, dying for it. The sun beats down without mercy. The sky is a pale, washed-out blue, not the deep azure of winter, but something faded, exhausted, as if even the sky is tired of this heat. In the village of Nekhen, along the Nile's west bank, an old farmer named Amenemhat sits in the shade of his small mud-brick house and stares at his field. It is brown, not the rich, dark brown of fertile soil, but a pale, dusty brown, the color of death, of absence. Nothing grows. Nothing can grow. The irrigation channels that crisscross the field are dry, their bottoms cracked and crusted with salt. His wife, Neferti, brings him water, tepid, tasting of clay, but precious. Water must be rationed now, drawn carefully from the village well, used sparingly. The Nile is at its lowest point, sluggish and narrow, revealing sandbanks that are normally submerged. "It will come," she says softly, settling beside him. He nods but does not speak. Every year this waiting, every year this anxiety that twists in the belly like hunger. What if this year the flood does not come? What if the river stays low, the fields stay dry, the harvest fails? It has happened before. In the Old Kingdom during the reign of Pepi II, the Nile failed for years. Famine came, people starved, the government collapsed. The memory of it still haunts the collective consciousness of Egypt. The terror of dependence on something you cannot control. So they wait, and they pray. In the village temple, a small structure modest compared to the great temples of Thebes and Memphis, the priests make daily offerings to Hapi, the god of the inundation. They pour libations of beer and milk. They burn incense. They chant hymns that are older than memory. Hail to you, Hapi, who comes forth from the earth, who comes to give life to Egypt. Secret of movement, darkness by day. The words rise into the hot air and dissipate, and the sky remains cloudless. But Amenemhat knows the signs to watch for. He watches the sky at dawn and dusk, looking for a change in color, a shift from pale to deep, from dry to humid. He watches the birds, especially the ibises, sacred to Thoth, who migrate south when the waters begin to rise. He watches the stars, particularly Sirius, Sopdet, the goddess star, whose heliacal rising just before dawn has always coincided with the flood's arrival. The rising of Sopdet marks the new year. It marks the beginning of Akhet, the season of inundation. It marks hope. So Amenemhat watches and waits, and tries not to think about the grain stores running low, about the hunger that comes before abundance, about the fragility of life in a land that depends entirely on a single river's whim. The sun sets, the heat lingers, the earth remains cracked and waiting. But in the south, far to the south in the highlands of Ethiopia, where no Egyptian has ever been, the rains have begun to fall. The flood is coming. Amenemhat just doesn't know it yet. It begins with the sky. One morning, Amenemhat wakes before dawn. Habit, instinct, the old rhythm of a farmer's life. And steps outside. The air feels different. Not cooler, exactly, but softer, thicker. He breathes deeply and catches something on the breeze. Moisture. Faint, barely there, but unmistakable. The air tastes like rain, even though no rain has fallen here, even though none will. Egypt receives almost no rain. All life comes from the river. But the river begins with rain, rain that falls 1,000 miles away, in mountains Egypt's people can barely imagine. Amenemhat looks to the south. The horizon is hazy, indistinct. Clouds? Perhaps. Or just dust. It is hard to tell, but he feels it in his bones. Something is changing. In the village, others are feeling it too. Conversations in the market turn to the flood. How high will it be this year? Will it be sufficient? Too high. A flood that is too strong can be as devastating as one that is too weak, washing away homes, drowning livestock, destroying the carefully maintained irrigation system. The ideal flood rises exactly 16 cubits above the low water mark, measured at the Nilometers, the stone stairways built into the riverbanks at temples and cities throughout Egypt. 16 cubits means prosperity, enough water to saturate the fields, to deposit rich silt, to ensure a bountiful harvest. Less than 16, and there will be hunger. More than 18, and there will be destruction. So the watching begins in earnest. At the temple, the priests descend the Nilometer stairs every morning, checking the water level, making marks on the stone, recording the measurements in their archives. The entire economy of Egypt depends on these measurements. The king's tax collectors use them to determine how much grain each region should produce. Villages plan their planting based on them. Lives hang in the balance. 3 days after Amenemhat first noticed the change in the air, a boy comes running from the river shouting, "The water! The water is rising!" The village gathers at the bank. It is true. The level has risen. Not much, perhaps a hand's breadth, but risen, and the color has changed. The water, which was clear and sluggish, now carries a faint tint of brown. Silt, blessed, fertile, life-giving silt. The flood has begun. Neferti grips her husband's hand, and he feels her trembling. Not with fear, but with relief so profound it is almost painful. "It comes," she whispers. "Happy is generous. The gods have heard us." And Amenemhat, who is not a particularly religious man, who works the land with his hands and trusts more in labor than in prayer, finds himself murmuring thanks to gods he half believes in. Because some things are bigger than belief. Some things just are. The Nile does not flood suddenly. It is not a violent thing. Not here. Not in Egypt proper. It rises slowly, steadily, day by day, the water creeping higher up the banks, spreading across the floodplain like oil spreading across stone. Within a week, the river has transformed. Where there were sandbanks, there is now water. Where there were narrow channels, there is now a broad expanse, the Nile swelling to 3, 4, 5 times its dry season width. The current moves faster now, carrying with it not just silt, but debris, branches, reeds, sometimes the bloated corpse of an animal from upstream. The water is no longer brown. It is black, rich, dark, almost opaque, the color of fertility, of life. This is the gift of the Ethiopian highlands. Volcanic soil, washed down by monsoon rains, carried north by the Blue Nile and the Atbara River, deposited across Egypt in a layer that can be measured in inches. This black silt, Kemet in their language, is why Egypt exists. It is why civilization arose here, in this narrow green strip surrounded by desert. It is why the Egyptians called their land Kemet, the Black Land, and called the desert Deshret, the Red Land. Black is life, red is death. The distinction could not be clearer. Amenemhat watches the water spread across his field. Slowly, inevitably, like a living thing, it creeps over the cracked earth, filling the fissures, turning the pale dust dark. The sound of it is gentle, a soft lapping, a quiet murmur, nothing like the roar of a flood in other lands. By the second week, the field is completely submerged. Where there were rows of stubble from the last harvest, there is now a shallow lake, calm and black, reflecting the sky. Amenemhat stands at the edge, knee-deep in water, and he can feel the coolness seeping into his bones. Such a relief after months of dry heat. He can smell the earth waking up, a rich, loamy smell, dark and fecund, the smell of potential. He reaches down and scoops up a handful of water. It is thick, almost like a thin soup, heavy with suspended particles. He lets it drain through his fingers, watching the silt cling to his skin, dark and slick. "Thank you," he whispers to the river, to the gods, to whatever force makes this miracle happen year after year. And the river, indifferent and generous, continues to rise. The village is transformed. Where there was anxiety, there is now relief. Where there was rationing and caution, there is now abundance, at least of water. The wells, which were running low, are no longer needed. People draw water directly from the flood, clear and cold once the silt settles. Children play in the shallows, splashing and shrieking with laughter. They catch fish with their bare hands, fish that have come with the flood, swimming in from the main channel, trapped now in the temporary lakes that cover the fields. The fish are easy to catch, disoriented by the sudden change in their environment. Neferti and the other women wade into the water with baskets, scooping up fish by the dozen. They will salt some, dry some in the sun, eat the rest fresh. It is a feast, and it comes every year, a gift from the river. In the evenings, families gather on the higher ground, on the low mounds where their houses stand, built deliberately above the flood level. They sit outside in the cooling air, eating fish grilled over fires, drinking beer, talking and laughing. There is a festival air to these weeks. The hard work of the year, the plowing, the planting, the irrigating, the harvesting, is paused. The fields are underwater. There is nothing to be done but wait for the waters to recede. So they rest, they celebrate, they give thanks. At the temple, the priests organize a procession. A statue of Hapi, portrayed as a man with a potbelly and pendulous breasts, symbolizing fertility and abundance, is carried through the village on a portable shrine. The priests chant, musicians play, dancers move in slow, graceful patterns, their movements mimicking the flow of water. People bring offerings, loaves of bread, jars of beer, bunches of flowers. These are laid at the statue's feet, gifts to the god who brings life. Amenemhat brings a fish, a large one, freshly caught, still gleaming. He places it on the pile and bows his head. "For the flood," he says quietly, "for the life you bring." The priest, a young man, newly ordained, smiles at him. Hapi is pleased. The waters are strong this year. The harvest will be good. And Amenemhat, looking at the black water covering his field, believes it. At night, under a sky crowded with stars, he lies beside his wife and listens to the sound of the water, a gentle lapping, a quiet presence. It is almost like the breathing of a sleeping giant, rhythmic and deep. "Every year," Neferti murmurs, half asleep, "I forget how beautiful it is. And every year, I remember." Amenemhat says nothing. He just listens to the water, and to his wife's breathing, and to the distant sound of laughter from a neighbor's house. This is happiness. Simple, profound, tied to the land, to the river, to the cycle that has repeated for thousands of years, and will repeat for thousands more, or so they believe. At the great temple of Karnak, hundreds of miles to the south, the Nilometer is being watched with intense focus. This is not a casual observation. This is science, or as close to science as the ancient world can come. The priests responsible for the Nilometer are trained in mathematics, in record-keeping, in the interpretation of patterns across years and decades. The Nilometer at Karnak is a stone stairway descending into the river, with markings carved at regular intervals. Each marking represents a cubit, the length from elbow to fingertip, standardized at approximately 52 centimeters. Every morning, at dawn, a priest descends the stairs. He is naked, Ritual purity demands it, and he has bathed in the sacred lake, rinsed his mouth with natron, shaved his entire body. He carries nothing but a wooden measuring rod. He descends carefully, counting the steps, and when he reaches the water, he measures how many cubits above the low water mark. He counts, checks, counts again. Precision matters. This number will be reported to the king, recorded in the temple archives, used to predict the harvest and set the tax rates. Today, the priest, his name is Samtik, and he has been doing this for 15 years, measures 14 cubits. Good. Very good. The flood is rising on schedule. 2 more cubits, and it will be perfect. He climbs the stairs, water streaming from his body, and reports to the chief priest. The chief priest, an old man named Bakan Konsu, white-haired and bent but with eyes still sharp, nods slowly. 14, he repeats. The same as last year at this time. Mark it. A scribe, sitting cross-legged in the shade, records the number on a sheet of papyrus. The date, the measurement, the phase of the moon. This information will be added to the temple's archives, which stretch back centuries. By comparing the current flood to past floods, the priests can make predictions. Not perfect, but better than nothing. If the pattern holds, Bakan Konsu says thoughtfully, we will reach 16 cubits in another week, perhaps 17. A strong flood, but not dangerous. Samtik bows. The gods are generous. The Ethiopian rains are generous, Bakan Konsu corrects gently. He is old enough, wise enough, to speak a truth that younger priests might find heretical. The flood comes from rain, not divine whim. The gods may send the rain, but the mechanism is physical, understandable. Still they pray, because even if you understand the mechanism, you do not control it. At temples throughout Egypt, the same ritual is being performed. Measurements taken, numbers recorded, reports sent to the capital, where the king's administrators collate the data and prepare their projections. Egypt runs on these numbers. Prosperity or famine, abundance or starvation, all of it visible in the marks on a stone stairway, in the black water, rising day by day. Samtik dresses and returns to his other duties, morning prayers, ritual offerings, the endless tasks of temple life, but his mind remains on the river. 14 cubits, rising. The gods are generous. The rains are generous. Life continues. The flood season, Akhet, lasts for 4 months. 4 months when the fields are underwater, when the usual work of farming is impossible, when life takes on a different rhythm. In Amenemat's village, this is a time of rest and community. With no planting or harvesting to do, people have time. Time to repair their houses, to make new tools, to weave baskets and mats, to spend with family. The younger men sometimes travel to the cities to work on royal building projects, temples, tombs, monuments. The pay is good, the food is provided, and when they return, they bring back stories and wages. But many stay in the village. They fish. The flood brings an incredible abundance of fish, not just from the Nile, but from the temporary pools and channels created by the rising water. Catfish, tilapia, perch, they swarm in the shallows, easy to catch with nets or traps or sometimes just bare hands. The women preserve the excess, salting it, drying it in the sun, storing it in clay jars for the lean months ahead. Children play in the water, learning to swim, an essential skill in a land dominated by a river. They dive for stones, race each other across the flooded fields, build small boats from bundles of papyrus reeds. In the evenings there are gatherings. Music, always music. Someone has a lute, someone else a flute made from a hollow reed. The sound carries across the water. Simple melodies, repetitive and hypnotic, the kind of music that makes you sway without thinking. People dance, not the formal, ritualized dances of the temples, but spontaneous, joyful movements. Couples hold hands and spin. Children dart between the adults, laughing. The old sit and watch and clap the rhythm. There is beer, of course. There is always beer. Thick and nourishing, brewed from barley, flavored with dates or honey. It is drunk from shared bowls, passed hand to hand, a symbol of community and abundance. Amenemhat sits with his neighbors, Kienti, the potter, Merira, the weaver, old Seneb, who fought in the wars of Thutmose III and still tells stories about it. And they talk about everything and nothing. About the flood, yes. About how high it might rise, how good the harvest will be. But also about trivial things. Whose daughter is courting whose son? Which family's goat got loose and ate someone's laundry? The new designs Merira is weaving into her cloth. It is ordinary life, made extraordinary by the presence of abundance. The water, the fish, the time itself. At night, lying beside his wife, listening to the water lap against the edge of the house platform, Amenemhat thinks, this is what paradise must be like. Not grandeur, not palaces or jewels or power. Just this. Enough food, enough rest, enough time to be human. The water rises for another week, then stabilizes. The flood has reached its peak. 17 cubits, the priests announce. A strong flood, a generous flood. And then, slowly, it begins to recede. The water withdraws. Not quickly. Nothing about the Nile is quick, but steadily, day by day, revealing the land beneath, and what land it is. Where there were cracked, pale fields, there is now richness. The floodwaters have deposited a layer of silt, black, smooth, fertile, that blankets everything. It gleams wetly in the sun, dark and full of promise. Amenemhat walks onto his field as soon as the water is gone, enough to allow it. His feet sink slightly into the mud, not deep, just enough to leave footprints. The texture is perfect, not too wet, not too dry, yielding but stable. He crouches and takes a handful of the silt, squeezing it in his fist. It holds together, then crumbles when he opens his hand. Perfect. This is what they wait for all year. This moment when the land is reborn, when the potential for life is written into the soil itself. But there's no time to waste. The silt must be worked quickly, before it dries and hardens. The fields must be measured and marked. The irrigation channels must be cleared of debris and redug where the flood has filled them in. The work begins. First, the surveyors come, men employed by the temples and the state, carrying ropes and measuring rods. They re-establish the field boundaries which the flood has erased. In Egypt, land is precious and boundaries are sacred. Disputes over field lines can become violent, so the surveyors work carefully, consulting old records, looking for landmarks, stones, trees, anything that survived the flood. Once the boundaries are marked, the scribes come. They measure each field, calculate its area, record it in their ledgers. This information will determine how much tax each farmer owes, usually about 20% of the harvest, paid in grain. Amenemhat stands with the scribe as his field is measured. 10 auroras, the scribe announces, making marks on his papyrus. Amenemhat nods. It is what it has always been. His field is neither large nor small, just enough to feed his family, to pay his taxes, to trade for the things he cannot grow. The scribe moves on. Amenemhat turns to his real work, preparing to plant. The plowing happens quickly after the flood recedes, while the silt is still soft. Amenemhat owns a plow, a simple wooden implement, a sharpened stake attached to a handle pulled by oxen. It is ancient technology, unchanged for millennia, but it works. He yokes the oxen, 2 placid beasts, brown and broad, who have done this many times before. They lean into the yoke without complaint, their muscles bunching, their hooves sinking into the soft earth. Amenemhat walks behind, one hand on the plow, guiding it. The blade cuts through the silt, turning it, mixing it, exposing the dark earth beneath. Behind him the field is transformed. Neat furrows, straight lines, a pattern imposed on chaos. It takes 2 days to plow the field. By the end, his shoulders ache, his hands are blistered, and his body is coated in a fine layer of black dust. But the work is good work, honest work, the kind that makes you tired in a satisfying way. Neferti comes to the field carrying a basket of seed grain. Emma wheat, saved from last year's harvest, carefully stored in clay jars to protect it from mice and moisture. The grains are small, hard, reddish-brown. Each one holds the potential for a stalk that will produce hundreds more. Together, they plant. A Menemhat walks the furrows, and Neferti follows, broadcasting the seed with practiced movements. A handful scattered in an arc, covering the ground evenly, not too dense, or the plants will compete for nutrients and water, not too sparse, or the yield will be low. It is a skill learned over years, passed from parent to child, refined through generations. They work in silence mostly, except when Neferti begins to sing. An old planting song, something her grandmother taught her. Into the black earth, into the dark. Each seed a prayer, each grain a spark. Osiris died and rose again. So shall the wheat, so shall the grain. Her voice is thin and sweet, carrying across the field. Amenemhat finds himself humming along, though he cannot remember all the words. Other families are doing the same thing in their own fields. The whole village is planting now, moving with collective urgency. The season is short. The silt will dry, the heat will return, and the grain must be established before then. Children help, their small hands scattering seed, learning the rhythm and the responsibility. This is how knowledge survives, not written in books but embedded in bodies, in muscle memory, in the shared practice of survival. By evening, half the field is planted. They return home tired but satisfied. Neferti cooks a simple meal: bread, lentils stewed with garlic and onion, a few dried fish. They eat sitting outside, watching the sun set over their field. Half plowed, half planted, dark and full of promise. Every year, Amenemhat says quietly, I plant, and every year I am amazed that it works, that those tiny grains become wheat, that wheat becomes bread, that we survive another year. Neferti leans against his shoulder. The gods provide. The river provides. He corrects gently. The river is a god, she replies. And perhaps she is right. Perhaps the distinction does not matter. Perhaps reverence is reverence, whether directed at a stone statue or a living flow of water. They finish planting the next day, when the last seed is scattered, when the last furrow is covered. Amenemhat stands at the edge of his field and speaks a prayer, not to any specific god, but to the land itself. Grow strong, grow tall, feed us for another year. And then he waits. The waiting is its own kind of work. Within a week, the first green shoots appear, tiny, fragile, almost invisible against the black soil. But they are there, and each day they grow a little taller, a little stronger. Amenemhat checks the field every morning, walking the rows, looking for problems. Are there bare patches where seeds failed to germinate? Are there too many shoots in one place, requiring thinning? Are there signs of pests, insects, birds, rodents? The birds are the worst. As soon as the grain begins to sprout, the birds arrive. Sparrows, finches, crows, descending in flocks to feast on the tender shoots. They can devastate a field in days if left unchecked. So the children are put to work. They stand at the edges of the field with slings and stones, with wooden clappers that make sharp cracking sounds, with shouts and songs designed to frighten the birds away. It is tedious work, standing in the sun for hours, chasing birds who will only return the moment you look away. But it is necessary. Amenemhat's grandson, a boy named Khaemwaset, named after the famous prince and scholar, takes his turn in the field. He is 8 years old, skinny and serious, determined to prove himself useful. He stands with a sling, whirling it over his head, launching stones at the birds. Most miss, but occasionally one connects, and a bird falls from the sky in a burst of feathers. The boy retrieves it carefully, respectfully. The bird's body will be offered at the village shrine. Nothing is wasted, everything has value. Between bird attacks, Kemwaset watches the wheat grow. It is fascinating to him, this slow miracle. Each day the shoots are a little taller. Each day they fill out more, their leaves unfurling, their roots reaching deeper into the black soil. He can almost see them growing if he stares long enough. He asks his grandfather, "Where does the plant come from? How does something so small become something so big?" Amenemhat, who has planted wheat for 40 years and has never really thought about this question, pauses. "It is a mystery," he says finally. "A mystery and a gift. The seed holds everything inside it, all the knowledge of how to be wheat, how to grow, how to make more seeds. We just give it earth and water and sun. The rest is magic, or the gods," Kemwaset suggests. "Or the gods," Amenemhat agrees. As the wheat grows, irrigation becomes critical. The Nile has receded to its normal channel now, and rain will not come. It never does. So water must be brought to the fields manually, through the irrigation channels that crisscross the land. Amenemhat and his neighbors take turns operating the shaduf, a simple but ingenious device, a long pole balanced on a pivot, with a bucket at one end and a counterweight at the other. You pull the bucket down to fill it from the canal. Then the counterweight helps you lift it back up to pour into the irrigation channel. It is rhythmic work, meditative. Pull a lift, pour. Pull a lift, pour. The water runs down the channels, spreading across the field, soaking into the soil. The wheat drinks it in, growing faster, greener. At night, Amenemhat watches the moon. The Egyptians measure time by the moon, dividing each month into 3 10-day weeks. They watch the moon's phases for agricultural timing, when to plant, when to irrigate, when to harvest. It is not superstition. It is observation, refined over thousands of years. The moon influences the water table, the behavior of plants, the patterns of life. The moon waxes, the wheat grows, and Amenemhat, watching both, feels that old sense of connection to the land, to the sky, to the vast cycles that govern all life. He is small. His life is brief. But he is part of something larger, something that has repeated since the first humans settled along this river and discovered that seeds could be planted, nurtured, harvested, and the cycle begun again. It is enough. 4 months after planting, the wheat is ready. The field has transformed. Where there were bare furrows, there is now a sea of gold. Thousands of wheat stalks, each one heavy with grain, bending slightly under the weight, rustling in the breeze like whispered prayers. It is beautiful. Amenemhat stands at the edge of his field and simply looks. Every year he is struck by this moment, the transformation from seed to abundance, from potential to reality. It never gets old. It never becomes routine. But there is no time for contemplation. The harvest must happen quickly. The grain is ripe, and if it is left too long in the field, it will begin to fall, or birds will take it, or some disaster will strike. The window for harvest is short. The entire family mobilizes. They rise before dawn, when the air is still cool, and head to the field carrying tools, sickles, curved blades of flint set into wooden handles, sharp enough to slice through the wheat stalks cleanly. The work is backbreaking. You bend at the waist, grab a handful of wheat stalks, slice through them with the sickle, drop the cut wheat behind you, and move forward. Repeat, again and again and again, for hours, until your back screams and your hands cramp and sweat, stings your eyes. But there is a rhythm to it, a music, the sound of the sickle cutting through wheat, a soft shushing sound. the rustle of the stalks falling, the breathing of the workers synchronized, the occasional song, started by someone to keep spirits up, taken up by others. Cut the wheat, cut the wheat. Isis weeps and Osiris sleeps, but the grain will rise again, golden children from the plain. Neferti works beside her husband, her movements practiced and efficient. Their daughter works nearby, and their son, and their grandson, 3 generations in the field, bound together by necessity and tradition. By midday, half the field is cut. The wheat lies in heaps behind them, golden and precious. They break for the noon meal, bread and beer and onions, eaten sitting in the shade of a palm tree at the field's edge. The food tastes better than any feast, because they have earned it with their labor. They rest briefly, then return to work. By sunset, the field is completely harvested. The wheat must now be gathered and transported to the threshing floor, a hard, flat area of ground near the village, swept clean, where the grain will be separated from the chaff. This is done over the next 2 days. The wheat is spread on the threshing floor, and animals, oxen or donkeys, are driven over it in circles, their hooves breaking the grain free from the stalks. Or sometimes workers beat the wheat with flails, 2 sticks connected by a short chain, swung rhythmically to break the grain loose. Then comes winnowing, tossing the threshed wheat into the air with wooden forks, letting the wind carry away the chaff, the light, papery husks, while the heavier grain falls back to the ground. It is dusty work, itchy work. By the end of it, everyone is coated in a fine layer of chaff that works its way into every crease and fold of clothing, every pore of skin. But it is satisfying work, because at the end you have grain, clean, golden, life-sustaining grain, the product of a year's labor, compressed into these small, hard kernels. A Menemhat measures his harvest, 15 sacks of grain. A good yield, better than last year thanks to the strong flood. He sets aside 3 sacks for the tax collector, who will come next week. 2 more for next year's seed. The rest is his, to feed his family, to trade for oil and cloth and tools, to brew into beer, to grind into flour. This is wealth, real wealth, not gold or jewels, but food, security, the promise of life for another year. After the harvest, there is a festival. It is not official, not mandated by the temples or the state. It is simply what people do, have always done, to celebrate survival, to give thanks, to mark the completion of the cycle. The village gathers in the evening, in the open space near the temple. Fires are lit. Meat is roasted, a precious ox, donated by the wealthier families, slaughtered and shared among everyone. The smell of cooking meat fills the air, rich and intoxicating. There is bread, fresh bread, baked that morning from the new grain, still warm and fragrant. There is beer, jars and jars of it, brewed strong for the occasion. There are dates and figs, honey cakes, roasted fish. It is abundance made tangible. The priests lead a ceremony of thanksgiving. They burn incense, frankincense and myrrh, imported from distant lands, expensive but necessary for such occasions. The smoke rises into the darkening sky, carrying prayers and gratitude to the gods. Offerings are made to Osiris, god of agriculture and resurrection, whose myth mirrors the cycle of the wheat, cut down, buried in the earth, rising again. Offerings to Isis, who taught humanity how to grow grain. Offerings to Renenutet, the snake goddess who protects the harvest. And offerings to Hapi, always happy, the god of the flood, without whom none of this would be possible. The priest chants, "Praise to you, Hapi, who brings food and nourishment to every place. You create barley and emmer wheat, so that the temples may celebrate their festivals, and the people may live." The people respond in unison, "Praise to Hapi, Lord of the waters." After the ceremony, the feast begins in earnest. People eat until they are full, a rare luxury in a world where most meals are simple and rationed. They drink beer until the edges of the world soften, and laughter comes easily. They dance. Simple, joyful movements, spinning and clapping and stamping feet. Musicians play. A young woman sings. A popular song about love and longing, her voice clear and pure. Couples drift to the edges of the firelight, finding their own private moments. Children run wild, freed from chores, their laughter bright as bells. Amenemhat sits with his wife, his children, his grandchildren. He watches the fire, the faces around him, the stars emerging overhead. He feels the beer warming his belly, the food making him pleasantly drowsy. The satisfaction of a job well done. We are blessed, Neferti says softly, and he nods. Because it is true, not because their life is easy. It is not because they have wealth or power, but because they have enough, because the cycle continues, because the river rises and the wheat grows, and life, against all odds, persists. The festival continues late into the night. Eventually people drift away, to their homes, to their beds, to sleep the deep sleep of the satisfied and exhausted. Amenemhat and Neferti walk home slowly, arms linked, comfortable in each other's presence. Above them, the moon, nearly full, bright as silver, illuminates the path. Around them, the fields, empty now, resting, wait for the next cycle to begin. Everything has been harvested. Everything has been celebrated. Now comes the waiting again. But that is fine. That is life. Death and rebirth, drought and flood, hunger and abundance. The cycle turns and turns again, and will turn forever. Or so they believe. The flood season will come again. Not now. Now it is still the dry season, the time of hot winds and low water. But in a few months, the signs will appear again. The sky will change. The Nilometer will begin to rise. The water will turn black with silt, and the cycle will begin again. Amenemhat knows this. He has seen it 40 times. He will see it perhaps 20 more, if he is fortunate, before age or illness takes him, and then his son will see it, and his grandson, and generations yet unborn. The river does not change. The land does not change. Only the people change, growing, aging, dying, replaced by children who will learn the same lessons, speak the same prayers, plant the same seeds. It is a kind of immortality, not personal, not individual, but collective. The immortality of practice, of tradition, of knowledge, passed hand to hand, generation to generation. Amenemhat thinks about this sometimes, lying awake at night, listening to his wife's breathing, to the distant sound of the river. He will die, that is certain. His name will be forgotten, probably within a few generations. The field he has worked his entire life will pass to his son, then to his grandson, and eventually to strangers. Nothing of him will remain. Except this, the knowledge of how to read the river, how to work the land, how to survive in this narrow strip of green between vast deserts. That knowledge will survive. It will continue. And perhaps that is enough. One night, unable to sleep, he walks to the river. It is low now, back to its dry season level, flowing quietly between its banks. The stars reflect on its surface, bright and clear. The air is cool, carrying the smell of water and silt and growing things. He stands at the edge and looks south, toward the source, toward the distant highlands where the rain falls, where the flood begins its long journey north. He whispers, "Thank you," not to any specific god, just thank you, to the river, to the rain, to the force that makes this happen year after year, to whatever it is that allows life to exist in this impossible place. The river does not answer. Rivers do not speak. But in its quiet flowing, in its patient persistence, there is a kind of response. I will return, the river seems to say. I always return. Rest, and I will come again. And Amenemhat, comforted, returns to his home, to his bed, to sleep that comes easily and deeply, because the cycle is reliable, the river keeps its promises, because even in death there is the promise of renewal. Even the river rests, only to rise again. So do we, in our own seasons. The night deepens over the Nile Valley. The villages are quiet now, their fires banked, their people sleeping. The fields lie dark and peaceful, waiting for the next planting, the next flood, the next harvest. The river flows on, patient and eternal, carrying silt from the mountains, carrying life to the desert, carrying the dreams of millions who have lived and died along its banks. The moon rises higher, casting silver light across the water, across the land, across the sleeping world. And somewhere in that moonlight a farmer sleeps, dreaming of wheat. Somewhere a child dreams of swimming in the flood. Somewhere a priest dreams of the Nilometer, rising, rising, bringing abundance. They are small dreams, ordinary dreams, but they are the dreams that sustain life, that make civilization possible, that turn a river valley into a cradle of human achievement. The Great Pyramids, the vast temples, the golden tombs. All of these are built on the foundation of the flood, the planting, the harvest. Without farmers like Amenemhat, there would be no pharaohs, no priests, no monuments, just desert and death. But with the river, with the black silt and the rising water and the patient labor of generations, there is life. Rich, complicated, beautiful life. The moon reaches its zenith and begins its descent. The stars wheel slowly overhead, marking time in their ancient patterns. And the river flows on, forever. Listen. Can you hear it? The gentle lap of water against stone, the rustle of palm fronds in the night breeze, the deep, slow breathing of a land at rest. The flood has come and gone. The fields have given their gift. The cycle continues. Rest now, traveler. Let the rhythm of the river carry you into sleep. Let the darkness hold you gently. There is still one more story to tell. But for now, rest. Story 3. Inside the temple of Karnak at dawn. It is the hour before dawn. The deepest darkness. The time when even the stars seem to dim. When the world holds its breath between night and day, when the boundary between the living and the dead grows thin. I walk through the temple of Karnak. My paws make no sound on the stone floor. Smooth limestone, worn by thousands of years of footsteps, cool against my pads. The air is still, heavy with the scent of incense from yesterday's rituals. Myrrh and frankincense, lingering like memories. The darkness is absolute. No torches burn at this hour. No lamps. The temple is surrendered completely to night, as it must be, because every dawn is a rebirth, the sun god Ra emerging from the underworld, battling the forces of chaos, rising victorious to bring light to the world. And that battle requires darkness first. I pass between the columns, massive pillars of stone, each one wider than 10 men, standing with arms outstretched, each one rising so high, it disappears into the blackness above. There are 134 columns in the great hypostyle hall, arranged in rows like a forest of stone trees. In daylight they are covered with hieroglyphs and images. Pharaohs making offerings, gods receiving them, endless prayers carved into every surface. But now, in this darkness, they are just presences, silent witnesses to the night. I am not alone here. Somewhere in the darkness, the priests are stirring. I can hear them. The soft shuffle of feet, the quiet sound of breathing, the whisper of linen against stone. They have slept inside the temple precincts, in simple rooms surrounding the sacred core. They have dreamed priestly dreams, of rituals performed correctly, of the gods pleased, of Ma'at maintained. Now they wake, because the most important ritual of the day is about to begin. The opening of the mouth, the awakening of the god. In a small room off the main courtyard, a young priest named Amenhotep opens his eyes. For a moment he is disoriented, caught between sleep and waking, between dream and reality. Then memory returns. He is in the temple. It is dawn, or nearly dawn. He has duties. He rises from his sleeping mat, thin reed matting, barely padded, laid directly on stone. Comfort is not the priority here. Purity is. The room is pitch black. Amenhotep navigates by memory, by touch, finding the doorway, stepping into the courtyard where starlight provides the faintest illumination. The sky is still dark, but there is a quality to the darkness now, a sense of waiting, of impending change. Other priests are emerging from their rooms, perhaps 20 of them, all men, all with shaved heads gleaming in the starlight, all naked except for simple linen kilts. They do not speak. Silence is required. Together they walk to the sacred lake, a rectangular pool of water fed by underground springs, maintained with obsessive care. The water must be pure, ritually and physically. It is filtered, blessed, tested daily. At the lake's edge they pause. Then, as one, they step into the water. It is cold, shockingly cold. The desert night has chilled it, and now it bites at the skin, raising goosebumps, making breath catch. But this is necessary. This is purification. They submerge completely, once, twice, 3 times. Each time they whisper prayers. I am pure, I am pure, I am pure. My purity is the purity of the Bennu bird who perches on the holy stone
emerge,
in Heliopolis, water streaming from their bodies, and servants are waiting with linen towels. Clean white, smelling faintly of natron, the mineral salt used for both cleaning and embalming. They dry themselves quickly, efficiently. Then comes the mouth rinsing, a mixture of water and natron, swished and spat, repeated until the mouth is clean, pure, ready to speak the words of the gods. They are given clean kilts, brilliant white, pleated, tied with precision. Those who will enter the inner sanctum receive additional items. A leopard skin cloak, worn over the shoulder, signifying the priest's authority as Sem. A ritual specialist. A cone of incense, held in the left hand. A clay lamp, waiting to be lit. Amenhotep is not yet senior enough to enter the sanctum itself. His role today is to assist, to carry, to observe. But one day, if he proves himself worthy, if he learns the rituals perfectly, he will be the one to wake the god. For now he follows. The priests process toward the inner temple, walking in single file, silent as ghosts. Their bare feet whisper against stone. Their breathing is measured, controlled. The darkness is beginning to fade, not noticeably yet, but somewhere in the east, beyond the temple walls. The first faint grayness is seeping into the sky. Dawn is coming. The god must be ready. In a side chamber, smaller, windowless, lined with wooden chests, the high priest is being dressed. His name is Bakankonsu, and he is old, 70 years, ancient by any standard. His body is thin, fragile, bent by age, and decades of ritual postures. But his mind is sharp, and his authority is absolute. He stands naked while 2 junior priests attend him. First, they rub his body with oil, scented with myrrh, smooth and slick. This is both practical, protection against the dry air, and symbolic. The oil represents purity, divinity, the substance that separates sacred from profane. They work in silence, their movements practiced and efficient. No part of the body is neglected. Even the soles of the feet are oiled. Then comes the linen, layer upon layer of it. Fine white linen, woven by temple workers, bleached in the sun until it is bright as snow. The inner layer is a simple kilt, wrapped and tied. Over that, a longer kilt, pleated with geometric precision. Over that, a sash, gold thread woven into white linen, tied around the waist, the ends hanging to the knees. Then the leopard skin, an actual leopard pelt, spotted and beautiful, draped over the left shoulder, the head hanging down the front, the paws dangling. This marks him as Sem priest, as one who performs the highest rituals. Finally, sandals, woven papyrus, tied with linen cords. Normally the priests go barefoot inside the temple, but Bakan Konsu is old, and concessions are made. On his head they place a simple white cap, linen stretched tight, covering the skull. He is ready. One of the attending priests hands him a staff, gilded wood, topped with the Wo's scepter symbol, the emblem of power and authority. Bakan Konsu takes it, feeling its familiar weight, and nods. "It is time," he says quietly. His voice is thin but steady. They process out of the chamber, into the courtyard, where the other priests are waiting. The sky in the east is definitely lighter now. Still dark, but no longer black. Deep purple, fading to violet at the edges. Bakan Konsu leads the procession toward the sanctuary. Behind him, the priests follow in hierarchical order. The second prophet, the third prophet, the lector priests who will chant the sacred texts, the Wab priests who will handle the offerings, the younger priests like Amenhotep, who will observe and learn. They move slowly, solemnly, through the temple complex, past the first pylon, massive stone gateway, carved with images of the king smiting enemies, maintaining order against chaos, past the second pylon, the third, each one smaller than the last, each one a threshold, marking deeper levels of holiness, past the courtyards where the common people are sometimes allowed, past the hypostyle hall where only the elite may enter, deeper, deeper, toward the heart of the temple, toward the sanctuary where the god sleeps. The moment of transformation is approaching. The priests have reached the outer doors of the sanctuary, massive cedar wood doors, plated with bronze, decorated with images of the god. Amun-Ra, king of the gods, hidden and revealed, creator and sustainer. Bakan Konsu stops before the doors. He raises his staff and strikes the ground 3 times, sharp, ringing sounds that echo through the stone corridors. "Awake," he calls out, his voice stronger now, filled with ritual authority. "Awake, Lord of Karnak. Awake, King of the gods. The night has passed. The darkness has been defeated. Ra rises in victory." Behind him, the priests begin to chant, low, rhythmic, hypnotic. "Awake in peace, awake in peace. Your face is beautiful as you rise in the eastern horizon." The chant continues, building, layering, voices blending into a sound that seems to come from the stones themselves. And then, timing it perfectly, as he has done thousands of times before, Bakan Konsu turns to face east. The top of the first pylon, visible above the walls, catches the light. Just a touch, just the faintest golden glow. But it is enough. "The god has conquered the night," Bakan Konsu announces. Ra rises. Life returns to the world. And as if responding to his words, the light grows. It spreads down the pylon, reaches the courtyard walls, begins to flow like liquid gold across the temple complex. The priests bow deeply, foreheads touching stone. Praise to Ra! Praise to Ra who rises! Praise to Ra who brings life! Amenhotep, bowing with the others, feels his heart pounding. Every morning this ritual, every morning this moment of wonder when the darkness breaks and the light returns. Every morning it feels like a miracle. Because what if one day the sun does not rise? What if the forces of chaos, Apophis, the great serpent who attacks Ra in the underworld, what if one night they win? The Egyptians believe that the sun rises because the rituals are performed correctly. The prayers, the offerings, the precise words spoken at the precise moments. These things maintain Ma'at, the cosmic order. Without them, chaos would triumph. The sun would fail. The world would end. So the priests perform the rituals, every day, without fail, for thousands of years, just in case. The light continues to spread. Now it reaches the ground level, touching the forecourt, illuminating the columns, revealing the hieroglyphs that cover every surface. Bakankonsu straightens. "Open the doors," he commands. 2 priests step forward, gripping the bronze handles. They pull, slowly, because the doors are heavy, ancient, balanced on stone pivots that require careful handling. The doors swing open with a low creak. And beyond them, darkness. The sanctuary has no windows. No light reaches it except when the doors are open, and when, once a year during the Opet festival, the sun's rays penetrate all the way to the inner chamber at exactly the right angle. But now, in the growing dawn light, the entrance is revealed. A doorway leading into mystery, into the presence of the god. Before anyone enters, the sanctuary must be purified. This is Amenhotep's task. He steps forward carrying a bronze censer, a shallow bowl on a chain, filled with charcoal that was lit from yesterday's sacred flame and has been kept burning all night in a protected brazier. He kneels at the threshold of the sanctuary and adds incense to the charcoal. Small chunks of frankincense, imported from the land of Punt, far to the south. Precious, expensive, worth more than gold. The incense catches immediately, curling white smoke rising into the still air. The smell is immediate and overwhelming. Sweet, resinous, piercing. It fills the nostrils, the lungs, seems to penetrate the skin itself. It is a smell that erases the mundane world, that marks this space as separate, holy, other. Amenhotep stands and swings the censer, slowly, deliberately, back and forth across the doorway. The smoke forms a curtain, a barrier between the outer world and the inner sanctum. He chants softly, "Incense to the sky, libation to the earth. The god of incense comes. The god of incense purifies. All evil flees before his scent." 3 times he swings the censer. 3 times he repeats the prayer. Then he steps back. The doorway is purified. The way is open. Bakankonsu enters. He moves slowly with the careful steps of age and reverence. His sandals whisper against stone. The leopard skin on his shoulder seems to move in the flickering light of the lamps now being lit by the attending priests. The sanctuary is small, much smaller than one would expect for the dwelling place of a god. Perhaps 10 feet square, with a ceiling barely high enough for a tall man to stand. The walls are covered with gold leaf, reflecting the lamplight in soft, warm glows. And in the center, on a stone pedestal, sits the naus, the shrine. It is a box of gilded wood, intricately carved, with doors that have been sealed with clay and stamped with yesterday's seal. Inside the naus is the statue, the physical form of Amun-Ra, the god himself made manifest in wood and gold and precious stones. Bakankonsu approaches the naus slowly, reverently. He kneels before it and speaks. "I come before you, hidden one, lord of the 2 lands, king of gods. I am your servant. I have purified myself. I have made myself clean. I come to serve you." He reaches forward and breaks the clay seal. It crumbles in his fingers. Yesterday's seal, yesterday's protection, no longer needed. A new seal will be placed tonight, when the god is put to sleep again. He opens the doors of the naus, and there, revealed in the lamplight, is the god. The statue is small, no more than 2 feet tall, and exquisitely made. The body is carved from wood, likely sycamore, though the wood itself is now almost entirely covered in gold leaf. The face is inlaid with semi-precious stones, lapis lazuli for the eyes, carnelian for the lips. The headdress is gold, topped with 2 tall plumes, the symbol of Amun, made of carved and painted wood. In one hand, the statue holds the Waz scepter, the staff of power. In the other, the Ankh, the symbol of life. It sits on a small throne, also gilded, also inlaid, resting inside the naus as if in a small house. To modern eyes, it is an artifact, a beautiful work of art, certainly, but ultimately just an object, wood and metal and stone, cunningly shaped. But to Bakankonsu, to the priests, to all of Egypt, this is not a representation of a god. This is the god. The statue has been ritually animated. The opening of the mouth ritual was brought to life through ceremonies allowing it to so ancient to no one remembers to smell, when they began. To eat, to breathe. The god's Ka, his life force, resides within this form. It is as alive as any person, perhaps more so, because it is immortal, unchanging, eternal. Bakankonsu bows deeply, his forehead touching the floor. Lord, he whispers, I greet you at the dawn. You sail now in the dayboat across the sky. Has been defeated. All creation rejoices. You have emerged victorious from the underworld. He remains bowed for a long moment, giving the god time to wake, to adjust, to become present in this world. Then he rises and begins the ritual of the morning toilet. Behind Bakankonsu, 2 priests enter carrying vessels, one of gold, one of silver. The gold vessel contains water drawn from the sacred lake at dawn. Day water. The silver vessel contains water drawn at dusk yesterday and kept overnight in the temple treasury. Bakankonsu takes the gold vessel first. He pours a small amount of water into a bronze basin, then dips a clean linen cloth into it. The cloth is white, unused, woven specifically for this purpose. It will be used once and then burned. Nothing that touches the god can be reused for mundane purposes. He wrings out the cloth slightly, with then reaches toward the statue, tender and precise. He washes the god's face. He wipes the forehead, the cheeks, the chin. He carefully cleans around the eyes. Those inlaid lapis lazuli eyes that seem to watch, to see, to know. He wipes the lips, the neck, the shoulders. As he works, he chants softly, You are pure, you are pure. Your purity. He discards the first cloth and takes a second. You are clean, dipping it in the silver vessel. Is clean. The night water. You are fresh as the morning is fresh. With this, he washes the statue's hands. Has fled from its arms, its torso, its legs, its feet. Every part of the body is attended to, cleaned, purified. It takes perhaps 15 minutes, time that passes in focused silence, broken only by the quiet prayers, the soft sound of water dripping, the rustle of linen. When the washing is complete, Bakankonsu takes a third cloth, this one completely dry, and gently pats the statue dry. Then he takes a small jar of oil, sacred oil, compounded from myrrh and cinnamon, from lotus and ben nut, from a dozen other ingredients according to a formula that is itself a sacred secret. He pours a tiny amount onto his fingertips and begins to anoint the statue. He touches the oil to the forehead, the chest, the hands, the feet, the same points where the human body's energy centers are believed to reside. With each touch, he murmurs, You are anointed. You are consecrated. You are made perfect. Your body is divine. Your essence is eternal. The oil glistens on the gold leaf, catching the lamplight, making the statue seem almost alive, and perhaps as if in ways beyond human understanding. It does step down from its throne. The statue must be clothed. Yesterday's garments are removed, carefully, reverently. They are linen wrappings, scaled down to fit the small statue, but made with the same care as the garments of a pharaoh. They are dyed in sacred colors, red for power, blue for divinity, gold for eternity. These garments are taken away by an attendant priest. After many uses, they will be washed in the sacred lake, taken to the temple workshops and stored, and cut up to make bandages for mummies. Because everything that has touched the god is sacred, and even its scraps have power. New garments are brought forward. First, a simple white kilt, linen so fine you can almost see through it, pleated with geometric precision. This is wrapped around the statue's waist and secured with a tiny golden pin. Then a collar, a broad necklace of colored beads, strung in traditional patterns, alternating rows of turquoise, carnelian, and gold. It is placed around the statue's neck, resting on the chest. Then a crown. Not always the same crown. It changes according to the ritual calendar. Today it is the Atef crown, the tall white crown flanked by ostrich feathers, with a small sun disk at the front. It is made of painted wood, gilded at the edges, and it fits perfectly onto the statue's head, secured with a tiny peg. Finally, the regalia, the crook and flail, symbols of kingship and authority, placed in the statue's hands. These too are miniatures, exquisitely made, gilded and inlaid. The god is dressed. Bakenkonsu steps back to examine his work. The statue sits on its throne. The lamplight plays across the gold, creating patterns of light and shadow that make the face seem to shift, to express emotion. "You are clothed in glory," Bakenkonsu says softly. "You are adorned with majesty. All who see you bow down. All who speak your name are protected." He bows deeply, then retreats 2 steps. "You do not turn your back on a god. Now comes the offering. Food is brought forward. Everything must not be a grand feast. On a small golden tray, the priests have arranged. But a small loaf of white bread, still warm from the temple bakery, shaped into a perfect pyramid. A cup of beer, brewed yesterday from barley and dates, strained and pure. 3 lotus flowers freshly cut, their blue petals still closed, waiting to open in the heat of the day. A small cake of incense. These offerings represent the 5 basic needs: tender and fragrant sustenance, beer for life force and celebration, flowers for beauty and renewal, incense for the divine presence, meat for strength and vitality. Bakenkonsu takes the tray and places it on a small offering table before the naos. He raises his hands, palms upward, in the traditional gesture of offering, and chants, "An offering which the king gives to Amun-Ra, lord of Karnak, that he may give bread and beer, oxen and fowl, incense and unguent, all things good and pure on which a god lives, to the Kai of the god who dwells in this place." The formula is ancient, older than the temple itself, older than the pyramids. Perhaps it has been older than writing in variations for thousands of years, by thousands of priests, in thousands of temples, and it will be spoken for thousands more until the day comes, still centuries in the future, when the temples fall silent, when the old gods are forgotten, when new gods rise to take their place. But that day is not today. Today the ritual continues. Bakenkonsu takes the loaf of the statue's mouth and breaks off a small piece, but close, as if the god might lean forward and take it. "Taste," he whispers. "Eat, be satisfied." He does the same with the beer, tilting the cup slightly toward the statue's lips. "Drink, refresh yourself, be content." The food and drink are not literally consumed. The statue does not open its mouth and chew and swallow. But the Egyptians believed that the god's K consumes the spiritual essence of the offerings, leaving the physical matter behind. Later, this food will be distributed to the priests as payment. They are literally eating what the god has eaten, receiving sustenance and blessing from the divine meal. It is an elegant system. The god is fed, the priests are fed, nothing is wasted, and the sacred and mundane worlds are joined adding to the smoke already filling the small sanctuary. The lotus flowers are placed in a vase of water. They will bloom throughout the day, offering their beauty and scent to the god. The offering is complete. Bakenkonsu bows again, deeper this time, holding the position for several breaths. "Lord," he says, "accept these offerings. Be pleased with your servants. Protect Egypt. May the harvest maintain Maat. May the sun rise tomorrow, may the as it has risen today. May the Nile flood." Empty words. This is not rote ritual. This is prayer, genuine, heartfelt prayer, spoken with the weight of an entire civilization behind it. Because if the gods are not pleased, if the offerings are not accepted, if Maat is not maintained, then everything falls apart. That is what the Egyptians believe. As Bakenkonsu is what drives these rituals, sound begins to fill the dawn, without music, for millennia. Not the solemn chanting of the priests, but actual music, instruments and voices, blending in harmonies that are both strange and beautiful, to ears accustomed to different scales, different rhythms. The temple musicians have arrived. They are women, Only women can be musicians in the temples of Amun. They are priestesses in their own right, trained from childhood in music and dance, dedicated to serving the god through art. They enter the outer chamber of the sanctuary, not the inner room where the statue resides. That space is too small, too sacred for anyone but the highest priests. But they stand in the doorway, and their music flows in like water, like light. First, the sistrum. When shaken, it is a metal rattle. It produces a sound like rain on leaves, with small metal discs strung on wires, soft, rhythmic, hypnotic. The sound is said to please Hathor, the goddess of love and music, who is closely associated with Amun. 3 women shake sistrums, their movements synchronized, creating a layered rustling that seems to fill the space without overwhelming it. Then, the drums. Small hand drums. The rhythm is stretched hide, constantly shifting with the palms and fingers, always returning producing to a deep pattern that grounds the other sounds. Then, the harp. A large instrument, taller than the woman who plays it, with a curved frame and strings of twisted gut. She plucks them with her fingers, producing notes that shimmer and sustain, that blend and separate in patterns both mathematical and magical. And finally, voices. Long, sustained notes that women rise and fall, not words at first, in intervals that just sound almost alien to modern ears, tuned to different scales, different sensibilities. Then words emerge from the sound. Praise to the hidden one, praise to the revealed one, praise to Amun, who was first, praise to Ra, who rises daily, praise to the Lord of Karnak, praise to the King of Gods. The music continues. It fills for perhaps the temple, 10 minutes, echoes off the long stone enough walls, to honor the god, rises to the short high enough not to become and routine, seems to linger even after the instruments fall silent. Amenhotep, standing in the outer chamber, listening, feels tears prick his eyes. This is why he became a priest. Not for the power or the prestige, though those are real. Not for the steady employment and good food, though those matter too. But for this. He believes moments in this beauty, of transcendence. He believes of the God hears the music larger than himself. He believes the rituals matter. He believes the world is held together by these acts of devotion. And whether he is right or wrong, whether the gods are real or imagined, the belief itself has power. It has built this temple, the largest religious structure in the ancient world. It has sustained a civilization for thousands of years. That is, it has given meaning to millions of lives. Outside the sanctuary, that is not nothing. Beyond the hypostyle hall, in the outer courtyards, people are gathering. Not priests, not nobility, just people. Ordinary Egyptians come to petition the god, to offer prayers, to seek blessings. They cannot enter the inner temple. That is forbidden. The sanctum is for priests alone, for those who have been purified, trained, consecrated. The common people would defile it simply by their presence, not because they are bad, but because they are not prepared, not ritually clean. But they can come to the outer courtyards. They can approach the pylons. They can leave their offerings and speak their prayers. An old woman comes, leaning on a stick, her back bent by decades of labor in the fields. She carries a small clay lamp, lit, held carefully. She places it in a niche in the wall. A small offering, but all she can afford. She whispers, "Lord Amun, my grandson is sick. The fever will not break. Please, if it pleases you, let him live. He is a good boy. He deserves to grow up." She bows, touching her forehead to the ground, then straightens and limps away. A young couple comes, newly married, bright-eyed and nervous. They lay it at the base of a statue of flowers in the courtyard. Nothing fancy. One of the many smaller statues, what they picked from their garden, accessible to the public, that represent the god in forms people can approach. They pray together, hands clasped. "Bless our marriage. Give us children. Keep our home safe. We offer you our devotion." A merchant comes, prosperous-looking, dressed in fine linen, carrying a jar of expensive wine. He pours a libation on the offering table. "Thank you," the wine soaking into the stone, "for the successful voyage. Disappearing. The ships returned safely. The goods sold well. I am grateful. A farmer comes carrying a small sack of grain. Barely a handful, but precious nonetheless. He pours it onto the offering table. For the flood, he says simply. May it come again. May the fields yield. May we survive another year. One by one they come. They pray to a God they cannot see, rich and poor, speaking to a presence they can only feel, hopeful and desperate. And somewhere, they bring what they can. Sanctum, they ask for what they need. The priest and the people, the sacred and the mundane, the timeless and the transient, all bound together in this place, in this practice, in this endless cycle of devotion. While the people pray in the courtyards, inside the hypostyle hall, it comes through the clear light is beginning to penetrate, high openings in the walls, designed to let light in while keeping the interior cool and shaded. The light falls in shafts, golden and dusty, illuminating the columns. And on every surface, every column, every wall, every available inch of stone, there are hieroglyphs. Thousands upon thousands of them, perhaps millions, carved in raised relief, stories, originally painted in bright colors. His pharaoh paint is faded now, making offerings to a moon. Mostly just the stone. He stands with arms raised, holding out trays of food and drink, while the god, twice as tall as the pharaoh, because gods are always shown larger, reaches out to accept the gifts. Above them, rows of text describe the offering in detail, list the pharaoh's titles, praise his devotion. There, on that wall, is Ramesses Seku, shown multiple times because he had the temple extensively renovated and was not shy about adding his name everywhere. He is shown smiting enemies, conquering foreign lands, presenting captives to the god. The hieroglyphs proclaim his victories, his strength, his divine right to rule. On another wall, older inscriptions from the Middle Kingdom, nearly worn away by time. They too made later renovations. They too claimed divine favor, whose names are barely remembered now. Their names would be eternal. Some were right, some were wrong. The hieroglyphs are not just decoration. They are magic, word magic, the most powerful magic of all. To write something is to make it real, to speak it into eternal existence. The pharaohs carved their names and deeds into this imperishable stone so that they would never be forgotten, so that their cause would be sustained forever by the repetition of their names. And in a sense it worked. We still speak their names. Ramesses, Thutmose, Amenhotep. The syllables cross millennia, proving that stone and words combined can indeed create a kind of immortality. Amenhotep walks through the hall, gazing up at the hieroglyphs above him, but he never tires of looking. The sheer density of information, of history, of accumulated devotion is overwhelming. Every surface speaks, every image tells a story, every hieroglyph is a prayer, a claim, a hope carved into stone. The hall is a library, a museum, a temple, a prayer, all at once. And as the morning light moves across it, have passed, revealing different surfaces at different times. The god has been awakened, almost alive, dressed, constantly changing, honored with music and prayer. The doors of the sanctuary have been closed again, not sealed yet. That happens at sunset, but closed, giving the god privacy, peace, time to rest. The priests have dispersed to their other duties, teaching in the temple school, managing the temple estates. The people in the courtyards have thinned out, performing private rituals for wealthy patrons, to work and family, and the endless tasks of survival. The temple has settled into its midday rhythm, quieter than dawn, but not silent. There is always activity here, always work being done, always some ritual or ceremony or administrative task requiring attention. But in the hypostyle hall, there is a moment of stillness. The light pours through the clear story windows at a steep angle, illuminating the hall in a way that only happens at this time of day, in this season. The columns seem to glow, the hieroglyphs seem to move. The very air seems thick with presence, with memory, with prayer, with the accumulated weight of centuries of devotion. I sit here small and furred, in a patch of sunlight on the cool stone floor. I watch the light play across the columns. 134 of them, arranged in rows, each one unique, each one covered in texts and images, each one a prayer in stone. I think about all the people who have walked through this space, all the pharaohs who commissioned these carvings, all the priests who performed the rituals, all the workers who cut and shaped and placed these stones, all the ordinary people who came with their small
dust
offerings
and memory,
and
but the
desperate
temple
hopes.
remains.
Millions
of
of
them,
remaining, it
across
testifies.
thousands of years.
We were here. We believed. We built something beautiful. We tried to touch eternity. The sun continues its journey across the sky, the dayboat of Ra, sailing from east to west, from dawn to dusk, from birth to death, and tomorrow, if the rituals are performed correctly, if the offerings are made.
But today at least,
if
the
Mahat
sun
is
sails
maintained,
on.
the
The
light
sun
fills
will
the
rise
hall,
again,
the temple
and
breathes,
the cycle will continue.
the gods,
Forever.
whether real or imagined,
Or until
are
it doesn't.
honored. And I, an ancient witness, a keeper of stories, sit in the sunlight and remember all of it, every prayer, every hope, every life, remembered. The sound of the temple begins to fade now, the distant chanting, the footsteps on stone, the rustle of linen, and
For
the
now
whisper
the
of
sun is
incense,
high,
smoke
the light
rising.
is golden.
The
The
day
temple
moves
stands
toward
eternal,
evening, or
but
as
that
eternal
is
as
another
stone can be.
story.
Rest,
Another
traveler.
cycle.
The gods rest. The priests rest. And so should you. The sun is setting now. Not quickly, never quickly in the desert, but gradually, gorgeously, painting the sky in colors that have no names. Deep orange bleeding into purple, violet fading to indigo. Gold
I have returned to
dissolving
my
into
favorite
darkness.
place.
A high ledge in the temple of Karnak, overlooking the Nile, watching the day surrender to night. The wind has picked up slightly. Not strong, just a gentle presence, warm and dry, carrying the scent of the river, of sun-baked stone, of flowers wilting in the heat, of life continuing its patient rhythm. Below me the temple is settling into its evening rituals. The god is being put to sleep, the reverse of the morning ceremony, conducted with equal care and precision. The doors will be sealed, the lamps will be extinguished, the priests will withdraw, leaving only silence and stone, and the eternal presence of the divine. The city across the river is lighting its lamps, small points of light appearing in windows, in courtyards, marking the places where families gather, where
Life
meals
continues,
are shared,
as it
where
always
children
has,
are being put to
as
bed
it always
with
will,
stories and songs, until the day it doesn't. But that day is not today. Today the sun has crossed the sky, the Nile has flowed, the wheat has grown, the temple has echoed with prayer. People have loved and worked and hoped and feared and dreamed. Today life has happened. And now, as the darkness gathers, as the stars begin to emerge, one by one, you have walked with me through ancient Egypt. Then hundreds, you have stood beside the workers as they hauled
Now
stone
comes
up
the time
impossible
for
ramps,
rest.
building a
For you,
monument
traveler,
that would outlast
and
empires.
for me.
You have watched the Nile flood and the fields awaken, bringing life to a land that would otherwise be only sand and death. You have entered the sacred spaces where gods were wakened, washed, fed, honored. You have seen the beauty and the brutality,
through it all,
the
you have
grandeur,
been drifting,
and the simplicity.
slowly,
The eternal,
gently, and the transient.
towards sleep. Your breathing has slowed. Your thoughts have softened. Your body has relaxed into the surface beneath you, heavy and warm and comfortable. This is good. This is right. Let yourself drift further now. The stories are told. The cycle is complete. The sun has set, and the stars have risen, and the world is at rest. In this space between
You are
waking
safe
and
here.
sleeping, between the ancient world and your own, you are protected. The gods, whether real or imagined, are watching over you. The river, eternal and patient, is flowing beside you. The desert, vast and silent, is holding you. Close your eyes if they are not already closed. Feel the darkness behind your eyelids, soft, velvety,
It is the darkness of
complete,
rest,
of peace. It is not a frightening womb darkness from which all life comes, and to which all life returns. Breathe with me. In, slowly, deeply, filling your lungs with the cool night air. Out, letting go, releasing, surrendering to the pull of sleep. In, out. Each breath takes you deeper. Each breath carries you further from the waking world and closer
Above
to the
you, the
country
stars
of dreams. Wheel slowly across the sky. The same stars the Egyptians used to navigate, to mark time, to align their pyramids. Orion is rising and Sirius, and the planets that they called, the ones that never rest. But you are not like the planets. You rest. You must rest. The sands rest. The stones rest. The river, even the river, rests in its own way. Slowing, let your body sink into the darkness, dreaming of the mountains where it begins like incense and smoke, the sea where it ends. Let your worries drift away like boats on the Nile, carried by a current you do not have to control. You do not have to do anything now. You do not have to be anything. You can simply be here, now, in this moment of perfect peace. The temple is silent. The workers are sleeping. The farmers, the gods dreaming themselves are at peace, having been honored, priests are resting between rituals. All is well. All is machat, balance, order, rightness. And you are part of that balance. You are exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to be doing, which is nothing. Just breathing, just being, just drifting into sleep. I am settling now too, curling into a tight ball on my warm stone ledge. I have been awake for a very long time. My fur is soft against my skin. Even I must rest. My purr is a low vibration. I must close my eyes and the river. Constant I will dream of the things I have seen. The first stone laid, the last stone placed, the flood arriving, the harvest gathered, the gods awakening, the prayers ascending. I will dream of you, traveler, and the peace you have found here. And tomorrow, when the sun rises again, when the cycle begins light anew, fades from the sky, I will wake and watch shine bright and cold. The moon, tonight, a sliver, barely there, sleep, hangs low on the horizon. Should you. The Nile whispers to itself in the darkness. The palm trees sigh. The desert breathes its slow, eternal breath. And somewhere, in the space between earth and sky, between past and present, between waking and sleeping, you drift. Down, down, complete silence, into darkness, broken only by the faint, distant sound of a wooden flute. The sands rest. So quiet it might be the river dreams, playing a lullaby as old as the pyramids. Silence. And then, even that fades, leaving only sleep. Thank you for walking with me through ancient Egypt. If this story brought you peace, if it helped you drift into that soft country of sleep, I would be grateful if you would leave a like, subscribe for more bedtime stories through history, and tell me in the comments, where are you in the world right now, and what time is it where you are? I am always curious where these ancient stories travel. But for now, sleep well, traveler. May your dreams be peaceful. May your rest be deep. Until we meet again, good night.